This is the Real Estate Investing 365 podcast, your go-to source for real estate investing strategies so you can start living the life you want and get where you want to go. With your host, Justin Hanna.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Another episode, Real Estate Investing 365. Today I got with me Jennifer Gligoric. She's the co-founder and COO of Leafy Legal Services and the host of the Leafy podcast. It's a great legal services and real estate investor entrepreneurship podcast. She's been helping investors and entrepreneurs in real estate for over 20 years. She's in Galveston, Texas. She invests there locally and runs all of her business through there. So Jennifer, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
I'm really excited to be here. Actually, my investments are out of state.
Oh, they are? I thought you were investing there like throughout Houston or whatever.
No, I did have investments here, and then I decided to, we morph as entrepreneurs, and so I basically invested everything into Leafy Legal. I've been doing that, and now I'm starting to get the bug for multifamily. And now I have so many people on the podcast, I talk to people, so I don't know. It's going to start up again, so yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, we'll definitely dive into that and see what you're all getting into. But first, why don't we kind of dive into your background, like where you come from, how you got interested in real estate and the legal services and all that stuff, and then we'll move forward into where you're at now and where you're headed.
Well, my background is actually for over 25 years. I did crisis intervention with businesses. So I would help small business owners when they were tanking. I would go in and I'd fix it. And it was a long story on how I stumbled into that, because I did stumble into it. I had a big staffing HR background, sales and marketing. Pretty much everybody always hires me for sales and marketing. We just can't seem to close. We need new scripts. We need our website redone, a bunch of new brochures, blah, blah, blah. And then every time I would go in there, it was never that. It was always HR. That's what tanks companies. People are doing they're hiring the wrong people. They're putting them in the wrong spots. They're paying them the wrong wages. They're not treating them right. I mean, and it's always the owner.
Yeah.
So it was difficult because the owner's like pointing at this direction, and you've got to like take their little finger and point it back at their face and go, so sorry, but it's really you. And the good thing about it when it's you, though, is, people don't want to hear that, number one, but it's also the easiest fix because it's you. Rather than some shadowy, magic script that's going to manifest, like some, wonderful thing. It isn't that. It's really just little tweaks you can do. And then all of a sudden, things would start rolling for them. And one of the companies I did a major turnaround for after I had switched to helping people scale using only remote workforces, so Americans remotely, was an asset protection law firm. And once I did that, and of course, being a real estate investor, I was like, there's a better way. I'm going to make a better way. And so that's where I'm here now. I've got the most incredible team and we work remote. I believe that the future is now on many things, and companies are not utilizing it. They're using dinosaur methods. We don't have to clog the roadways and have people on the highways to do the majority of 9-to-5 work, except for like retail, groceries. There's certain industries you need people to go into an office, but for the main part, you don't. We can utilize those spaces for housing, for mental health, for all these ills that we have. If we just make little mindset shifts, the answers are right in front of us. So I have a passion to say, for that. And that's why real estate investing is important too, because every time you flip a house, you stop, lead from leaching into the ground. You take a family that could be homeless and you put them in a home. I mean, it's all good. It's win-win-win for everyone. So
for sure. Well, cool. Yeah, no, definitely today, the working from abroad or just over the internet. I mean, like our podcast, it's like you're in Texas, I'm in California. It's so easy. And companies like Amazon, you can do all your shopping at home too. So
I kind of hate Amazon though. I got to tell you, I think that the mega tech corporations, they need to get broken up. I'm like, after a while, we shouldn't have monopolies, and they destroy downtowns. That there's a way to I don't want to say redistribute, because I'm a conservative, so I'm not into some socialism thing. I just don't I believe in like pure capitalism where you don't have monopolies. And I think that the Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, Google monopolies are not good, because that's how it runs in these countries we've seen that have completely tanked.
Yeah.
They have these government backed, the government's in the back door. They're not private anymore. And so I'm like kind of against that.
Well, yeah, I kind of see what you're saying. On the other hand, it's like, they all started small at some point. And so
Yeah, and
then
then
if
they
you
made a
have,
deal with the devil. At one
they could,
point,
yeah,
they went to the dark side,
yeah.
and I think the dark side is when you start getting slave labor. When I talk about workforces that are virtual,
Yeah.
you have to pay them a living wage, and you want to stay like in the U.S. You want to do that. When people start going out and hiring, like for example, the Prius and iPhones, they go and they need to get cobalt for their batteries, right? Well, the only cobalt miners that we have right now are children, and they beat them and kill them so they can get the cobalt for our iPhones and our Priuses. And those lithium batteries are worse for the environment than 18-wheelers going down the road, hundreds and hundreds of them for years at a time.
Yeah, there's so
So
much, huh?
yeah, so I'm like, okay, at one point you made a deal with the devil and you decide to go to child labor to get this, rather than to think about how can we do this at home, pay people living wages, and they all do it. All the big ones do it. You get the sweatshops overseas and stuff like that. This is like completely not asset protection, right? Or real estate. But,
Yeah.
I think ethics, I've talked to so many people that are doing this for the right reasons, getting into real estate investing. They want to be entrepreneurs, but ethics, I think, is something that really needs to be taught. When you start going, let's go on Upwork and get a $3 an hour person, where are your ethics at this point? Can you afford to do it, or do you need to just go to get investors, get more money, or budget yourself more wisely? Because that is not ethical. I don't care if they're sitting there doing it. It's not ethical.
Yeah, well, and just like running business overall in an ethical way is obviously how you'll become successful. I follow some different like business coaches, not business coaches for myself, but different business entrepreneurs and all this stuff. And one guy that I really like to follow, his name's Andy Frisella. I follow him a lot. He has supplements companies and these different things, but his main thing is being like overly ethical, like doing the right thing, like at a bigger business level. A lot of his deals are done on handshakes, and he's built this $1 billion company, and, handwriting notes to his people, like 120% refund on your products, like paying all his suppliers, like overly, more than they get paid from any other distributors or anything.
And did that stop him from being a billionaire, not just a millionaire, a billionaire?
Yeah, no. And that's what he says leads to success. His companies do over $1 billion a year. And he's like, it might've been the harder route, but it has established him as, the top of the line in his industry. So,
and it will every single time.
Yeah.
If you do the right thing and you're ethical and you're good to your people, it's only going to exponentially not just make you successful, but everyone in your organization. So then you can look back and go, these kids went to college because of me, because the organization I built. They've had a good life because of me. They just bought, because of the work that I was able to bring, and that I am supporting them to be great people, and I'm allowing them to live a decent life, and not just scrape and get along, but to have a life that's really envious because they're able to work here. And then they're all getting together. And it's amazing when people are well fed and they have a nice house and they're not terrified about their bills all the time and they're working. It's amazing the innovation that comes out of people.
For sure. No,
and so now you have all these shiny spark plugs, some which will succeed, far exceed you in what you're doing. And that's what you want. You want to let everyone else's light shine and have them be just as successful, if not more successful. And when you have that mindset, it's completely different.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I kind of see that myself too. So, well, that's awesome. How about we touch on a little bit like your real estate background? You were into some investing before, right? And then you kind of sold it to focus on Leafy.
Basically, everything that I had done either came from family, they were timeshares, or they were rental properties. So I still have a property. And then I took my, cashed out to put it all into the business. And now what I'm thinking of, and I'm listening to more, is more the passive investing, but with people I know, like, and trust. There are some great people doing multifamily, like Anna Grande, there's Kathy Fettke, people that I've felt very aligned with, and to be able to build up enough portfolio that I would be an attractive investor for them. But I watch them, I'm looking at them, I have to trust them. So it'd be, kind of more like that for my income flow. So that's what I'm looking at right now. That's my newest jam that I'm researching, because we're always researching.
Right, for sure. So one of the questions a lot of real estate investors have, obviously, when they're getting into real estate, and I think this is kind of your forte here, is whether they should, start an LLC or just hold it in a trust or have it just under their personal name. Like when they start buying their first or couple investment properties, what's your kind of guidance and what do you guys focus on helping investors with?
Well, my CEO, Brian, he's an investor too. He lost his shirt in 2008. If he would have had any of the things that we would have had in place, he wouldn't have went bankrupt. He wouldn't have lost his properties. And we talk to people like this all the time. And even just as an entrepreneurial level, once you decide, I'm going to become a real estate investor, I'm going to get an extra house, I want a spare income, you need to do that mind shift immediately and say, I'm going to run this like a business. You don't keep on doing things in your own name. You're going to want to get the mortgage. And most people, and I say most, it's not even most anymore. There are many people that buy properties now in LLCs, but by far, when you first start out, you're probably going to buy it in your own name, leveraging your own credit to get that mortgage, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you're doing Freddie Mae or Fannie Mae, you have to do it in your own name. You can't buy in an LLC. Those products don't allow for that. Right? So you're going to use your own name, but then you want to transfer it over away from you. So when you do business, you need to do your operations under one entity, and you want that entity to be anonymous. You don't actually, people want to brand their name. I want everyone to know it's me. That's great. That's wonderful. But brand to brand, don't brand your name. You don't want to be a sitting duck for lawsuits. And right now in our litigious society, your chance of being sued as a real estate investor goes from 25% of all Americans getting sued sometime in their lifetime, so a 1 in 4 chance, to real estate investors as a group, 95% will get sued in the next 20 years. Oh. The difference is astounding. We did a statistics survey with the National Survey of Data. The national courts pulled a bunch of data, and I'm like, is this right? Yeah, it's absolutely right. It's because if a vexatious attorney, so let's say you get into a car wreck, you think, I've got Progressive, I've got Geico, I've insurance for that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Well, what if they don't have insurance? The first thing they're going to do is run to some shark attorney and say, my back, my neck, blah, blah, blah. And that attorney's going to look up your limits. They're going to look all the information they have up from your ticket and everything. They're going, and they already know limits for everybody. So even if you have full coverage, you still have limits of what they're going to pay on your behalf, and you'll have to pay over that. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to get into these programs like Data Tree, or there's the USDs, or just the Texas Secretary of State, or wherever state you live in, and they're going to start looking up your information. Well, if you're a member on an LLC, that's public record. It's $1. Sometimes it's free depending on what state you're at. Oh, look, there's 3 LLCs they're on, because maybe you have 3 rental houses and you put them all in an LLC thinking that's going to protect you, right? Well, let's look up more. And then all of a sudden, oh, you used your name on the mortgage and you never transferred it away. Well, now there's that. So then what he's going to do is go, okay, we're going to put liens against all the property. And then they're negotiating with Progressive, and eventually you end up in a meeting with your Progressive attorney or Geico or whoever, this other guy and the shark attorney, and your attorney will have to take you aside and go, man, I don't even think they have a case. We'll probably win in court, but there's nothing for you to take from them because they don't have any money. In the meantime, they've put all these liens hoping we'll go to court. If you go to court, you're going to owe us an extra 10 grand because that's what it costs for us to continue with this. But they're saying that you can settle for 5. And it's usually not 5 and 10 grand. It's usually a lot more.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. Yeah.
So it's this, what? I'm paying someone for nothing? He basically just did a paperwork scam on me. Is it right? No, it's not right. But that's you're in business now and this happens, and there were easy ways for you to prevent it, and you decided not to do it. And now this is what's going to happen. And I hate to use like these fear tactics. Well, it isn't fear tactics when you have the statistics we have to back it. Then it's just a reality of business that you must think about if you're going to go into business. Everybody wants the money. They want to have properties that are, they're making $200-$300 extra a month on top of it. That's great. You're getting cash flow in. But how are you protecting that cash flow and treating it like a business? And there's just easy ways to do it. It will cost you some money, but it's not going to cost you as much as one lawsuit. So might as well just do it and add it into your plan. And when you have the right structure, that right structure helps you in your business. It makes you more able to scale because you're not stacking LLCs, getting new EINs for every LLC, bank accounts for every LLC. That is not, if you get 10 houses, you get 10 LLCs out there, there are people who do that.
Yeah.
That is an administrative nightmare on a business end.
Well, especially if you're in somewhere like California too. Like the California is just, the LLC, the franchise tax fee or whatever.
Oh yeah, the FTB. Yeah, that's minimum.
That's minimum.
$800 minimum a year. And the FTB defines doing business as in the state of California so vague. All your properties could be in Nevada. You have a Wyoming LLC, which by nature is supposed to be, anonymous. Most people will get the anonymous Wyoming. We do those all the time too. But then if you have these 10 LLCs there and it ever gets pierced because your name is on these other LLCs, now it's supposed to stop in Wyoming, but there have been times that it hasn't. So then you're getting fined at $2,000 a pop, plus your back things and penalties. So by not having the right structure, it can really bite you in the butt later. And there are people who just ignore all of that and they'll work 20 some odd years and it never bites them, but it's because they're lucky. It's not because that's the way to do it,
Yeah, for sure. So if there's somebody, let's talk about we could talk about what is the right structure, and then we'll talk about if somebody's just going to go buy their first property, what should be their steps first to buy that property if they want to go this legal protection route. So what is what is the right structure? Like, how does it all work? Somebody that's listening, they don't know. So
number one, the right structure depends on you. So it depends on where you live. What is your homestead protection in your state? That's for your own house. If you have your own house, where your properties are located, how you are holding these properties. Are you just doing flips? Someone who has a flipping business or holding notes, they're going to have a completely different structure than someone who's buying and holding. And so what type of real estate business you're doing, and then what are your plans for the future? So I can't give that answer. For some people, it's just, a series of LLCs. You're just going to operate in one and then hold whatever, maybe you have equipment. I don't know. Let's say you also are a construction person and you've amassed some pretty decent equipment, maybe 30-40 grand worth of construction equipment or something. I don't know. Your Magnolia Homes of your town, like the flippers. Well, then you're going to put your equipment underneath a certain type of truss. They're not the same. There's all these different types of truss, and you're going to want to separate how you hold your assets from how you do business. That's the basic tenet. How you do business and where your assets are held need to be in two totally separate structures, and you need to be as anonymous as possible. If you're starting out and you've not done anything yet, I would suggest you get an anonymous LLC to be your operations. You can still buy your home in your own name. For many people, that's what you have to do at first, or you feel you have to do that at first. And then you want to transfer that away from you as soon as you get it. And you're going to want to transfer it into a type of trust structure. If you're looking to scale quickly, you can use a Texas or a series LLC, depending on what state you're in. We prefer Texas because it's very powerful protection, and Texas is they're so generous. There's no state tax, the franchising tax fees and everything like that. It's just great. It's just a great state to do that in. But there's other states we can do it in as well. Or you may be a Delaware type of statutory trust structure. That is the preferred structure for Californians.
Okay, Yeah. No, I understand. So what do you mean when you say what'd you call it? Something LLC, anonymous LLC?
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What are you talking about when you say that?
Well, then when you file an anonymous LLC,
Mhm.
you need to get someone to do it because you establish an agent trust. So if someone were to pull up that LLC name, they wouldn't show you as the owner. They would have the agent trust as the owner.
Okay.
So they can't pull you up. So as far as they know, you're working for that company. It's not your company. You want to put as many layers between your name and someone being able to sue you. You're going to want them to spend time, money, and effort to figure out who to sue.
Okay.
It's the difference between having a door lock and having signs in your front yard that say ADP, cameras on premises, those little stickers, and a dog. You have that house, and right next to it, you have a house that the door's wide open. That would be someone just having a DBA and doing it in their name. And then someone who just has maybe a lock on their door, but they don't have a storm door. It's just one lock and not a deadbolt. That's an LLC. There's a little bit there, but there ain't much.
Okay. So what is there one specific state that you guys mostly work with people in or out of, or you guys work with people from all over the place?
We work with people from everywhere. We have a lot of California clients. I'm going to tell you, we help a lot of California investors, and Texas is another big one. I'm in Texas. My CEO, he's in Southern California. We have attorneys in those two states that are just awesome. But then I have agreements with attorneys in other states. I mean, Florida, that's a big one. Arizona and Nevada, those are other big states we have people in because those are starting to be up and coming. There are different towns in there that are coming for real estate investors.
So if we're talking
everywhere,
to,
really,
let's say a California investor, they own their own primary residence and they're going to go buy their first property and they're in California. Like, can we just walk through maybe like some steps of what they should do as far as like what the structure would look like for just they are W2?
Well, first, okay, so let me ask you some questions. The first thing, their house, how much equity is in their house right now?
I mean, let's say a couple, like $100,000 of equity
is in there.
house.
Okay, and how much is their house worth?
Let's say 400.
Okay, so $300,000 of that house, if they're married, is at risk of being attached in a lawsuit because your homestead protection in California is only $100,000 for a married couple, unless you're 55 or disabled, and then it goes up to $175,000. Meaning somebody could fall and slip in your front yard, and insurance may or may not cover that, and if it doesn't, they can attach liens for all the rest of your equity. So the first thing we would talk about is what's your plan for your house. Are you going to stay in your house, or are you going to be getting out of that house? There's different types of trusts and things that you need to think about for your primary residence in California to protect it. For your other entity that you're wanting to get, do you have a structure set up already? Is it anonymous? If it isn't anonymous, what was your thinking on that? And then when you buy that house, how are you going to buy it? Are you going to buy it in your name? Do you want to establish a fundable entity? So if you have anonymous LLC, is it because you're trying to get a fundable entity and you're going to want to start the process for that? If so, then there's another structure for that. Then where are you investing? In general, a DST is the ultimate structure. A Delaware Statutory Trust is the ultimate structure for a California investor, but that can change depending on if you're only investing out of state. Then there's other ways that we could structure it that you might like. Go ahead. So what I'm saying is, I can't give you a one-off answer. I sit down and I talk to him. So what I do normally is it's a free consult. Sometimes it takes 30 minutes. Sometimes it takes a full hour. And then I ask all these specific questions. And then I say, okay, so based on all your answers to this is the type of structure you need to think about for you. Some people need a series. Some people need a DST. Some people just need maybe either 1 to even 3 LLCs, depending on what they're trying to do.
So what's the difference between an LLC and Delaware Statutory Trust?
Okay, well, Delaware Statutory Trust is a very specific type of trust, and it's a very powerful protection. It is not, it's not like completely irrevocable, but it's a lot harder to buy and sell out of that trust. So unfortunately for California people, if you're going to get rid of a property in a Delaware statutory trust, it has to be a 1031 like-kind exchange. But you can hold an infinite number of properties underneath this one structure. And so you're only having one bank account, one EIN. An LLC is a structure to do your business under. It's not really great to hold assets. It's not going to really protect your assets, but many people use it for that, and it's better than nothing, but it's just not really the ideal structure for real estate investors. It's just what's been used. I mean, the LLC as an instrument of the state was created in 1977 in Wyoming. They didn't even have LLCs before Wyoming created the LLC as a structure. Then other states started adopting. You had Delaware that adopted theirs. Delaware has great protection for LLCs. And then you had, other states. Right now, the top 4 states to get the best protection for an LLC are Wyoming, Delaware, Texas, and Nevada. And those are your top states.
You can get protection out of those states no matter what state you live in?
Yeah. You don't have to live in the state to have that, but you're going to want to register. Like with California, you have to, if you have a Delaware LLC and you're doing your business through that, you still have to register that in California as a foreign entity doing business in California. So you still have to pay that fee, but you can have the protection of the other one. I mean, most California will have a California LLC. They'll have a California LLC and then they'll have their other entity. They're going to want to have some separation between it.
Okay, cool. So like if you have the Delaware trust, you don't have to, so like an LLC, you might, or like what a lot of people do is they have, 10 properties and 10 LLCs, like you're saying, it just becomes a nightmare. And they have all these bank accounts, all different stuff.
Or they have 10 properties under one LLC. Let's say you have 30 properties and you create an LLC for every 10 properties. We get people that do that a lot too, because their bank wants to structure the loan like that. And it's just like, oh, wow, okay. Because what happens is someone sues the one LLC or one of the properties, and in discovery, they get all the other properties. And guess what they do? They put liens, they attach all of it, and you can't do anything with that entire group. And they can take the equity from that entire group. So It's not just one house that's at stake. Now you're literally giving them a third of your portfolio in that one scenario.
Okay. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying on that. So, I mean, that's, most people get the LLCs to try to protect themselves, but
and that's better than nothing. I mean, I'm not slamming anyone who's getting LLCs. That's better than nothing. You want to do something. And for some people, that'll be enough, depending on if you're flipping, but if you're holding this property for a long-term buy and hold, if your flips are $500,000 and above, and you generally are holding the flip 6 months or longer, that's just not the best for asset protection. And there's other tax benefits and different things like that you can consider when you have a trust. So, it pays for itself in the end to set up the right structure. But the reason you don't hear a lot about it is because most attorneys, this is still considered brand new legal theory. It hasn't been challenged. I hear this a lot for the DST for, mostly it's like, I don't want to say the older dinosaur like attorneys will go, well, it hasn't been challenged. You want to be a guinea pig? You want to be a guinea pig? Well, okay, I get what you're saying on that, but then it hasn't been challenged because it's so powerful. It's going to cost you so much time, money, and effort to challenge it. You have to already pretty much know everything that's in there and what you're going to get out of it. And the whole reason to challenge it is because you don't know. That's why it's not challenged. So you're not a guinea pig. You're just employing a structure that right now is considered the best legal structure on the planet. But for a law firm, those structures are not what they want to do, because you have to have skilled paralegals. You have to have and pay more money on the back end on your own staff. And it's just cheaper to do LLCs. That's just a couple of pages, and they can do that by rote, and they can have newbies do it. So for them, what's the return on investment? The return on investment is just to crank out, all these different LLCs. Do they care that you have to get 10 EINs and 10 bank accounts and that CPAs are going to charge you a fortune? Well, you're not going to them to be a business coach. You're going to them to set up LLCs.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. So that's not a question for them in the long run, and especially if real estate isn't even their primary deal. They're doing all other types of real estate investing, commercial and leases and syndicates, and they're doing all this other type of law, and you're wanting an LLC. Let's just give them an LLC, and I'll go back to what really makes the big bucks. Structuring a massive syndicate that's going to take hours, and I can bill $250 to $550 an hour to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to think about the business behind it as well. So when you have like a company like mine that's highly specialized with people who've only done this, only do it for real estate investors, only do it for investors that are doing buys and holds in this, and we can do syndicate things, but that's not our number one is doing syndicates. There's other lawyers for that. Then you can get these very powerful structures for less than you could get sometimes in stacking LLCs.
Yeah, no, for sure. So
you just have to shop. It's just, you have to be smart about it. As a consumer, you're going to want to shop around, but you're also going to want to ask questions, like why would they want to do it that way? Well, there's a lot of reasons to it. Not only can it protect you, it can, but in the back end, is it the best for your business? Well, why are you asking a lawyer who's doing that if it's the best for your business? Shouldn't you be thinking about that in different terms? They just expect other attorneys to know everything about everything,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not fair. You go to a heart doctor for your heart. You don't go to a proctologist and say, how come my heart's hurting right now? Right?
Yeah, no, that's for sure.
But they can still, give you penicillin, and go, oh, you got a cough, I'll just write you a little extra sometimes. I don't know if proctologists do that or not. If your proctologist say, I don't do that.
Okay, so I have my properties in
Mm-hmm.
just a trust,
Mm-hmm.
California revocable trust.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Is it revocable or irrevocable?
Maybe it's irrevocable.
Can you change it?
Actually, I think it's revocable, right? Because revocable means you can change it. Yeah.
Yeah, that it's much easier to change. You don't have a lot of rules, and there's not a lot of tax penalties for it.
Yeah, so I have a revocable trust that I've held, that we put all of our properties in when we buy them.
In one trust.
One trust.
And is that trust tied to an estate plan?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good protection if you do it. However, it's not the ultimate protection. The ultimate protection is to have each one of those protected separately.
Okay.
And that's why if you had a Delaware statutory trust, you
Mm-hmm.
could protect each of those properties separately, but under one structure. It's a complicated structure. That's why you have to go to a specialist to do it. But there are all these different layers of trusts and a Delaware statutory trust and even a type of LLC and paperwork just to get to one property. So someone has to spend a massive amount to find this out. But no, at least having it in a trust is better than nothing. Is it the ultimate structure? No, but someone's going to have to spend time, money, and effort to break that open. However, if it was broken open for some reason and it was deemed that your paperwork was not correct in any way, then they could attach everything. But that's true of almost, nothing is completely bulletproof. They don't have a perfect structure for everything. They have an ideal structure, and then they have other structures which are good too. But right. You should be fine. You should be fine.
Yeah, no, it's good. I plan on doing different things once we finally get out of California, just because I was trying to avoid paying all the extra California things that you had spoken about.
California, you have to really think about it and structure it in different ways. Yeah. So that's good that you have it like that.
Okay. So where can somebody find out more about Leafy Legal Services and everything you guys do? Because this is obviously very complicated. Is there so many? I know,
it's like it seems like such a bummer. I don't want to overwhelm people and have people go, "Oh my God, this is so overwhelming." Really, it isn't. It's overwhelming for us, or when I'm trying to explain it, because I'm trying to explain pretty complex legal theory that's even hard for attorneys who don't do this, right? So don't sit there and just go, it's just too much. It really isn't. It's paperwork on our end. We're not expecting you to be an attorney. What it just means is that you're able to scale a lot easier, pay a lot less money in the end than what you would be as if you did it other ways, like different various LLCs or just random trusts that aren't actually tied up into a structure meant to grow. you
Mhm.
know, but it's not so bad. I actually do a presentation where I do it on Zoom like this, and I have like diagrams I show people because it can be complicated. It can be complicated, but once you do it, it's like, oh, okay, I get it now. It's just mindset. You just have to wrap your head around it.
Yeah,
No,
no,
you can just go to leafylegalservices.com. That's it. And you find everything there.
yeah, well, and that's the thing. There's so much information out there from different people with different
Mm-hmm.
ideas and things like that.
Oh,
That
there
it's like
is.
you just get tied up in analysis paralysis. You don't know what to do, what the right option is, or whatever. So at least reaching.
Yeah, and everyone's is the best, right? Like, so
Right.
this type of California personal retirement plan.
Mhm.
I had somebody who got, is going to get one of those. That's the best ever for their situation. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, they're going to pay about 3 times as much if they would have done it another way. But that's the best, right? So like, don't get snowed by, a lot of talk. There's just so much that's it's out there, but and there are people who brand trust. I ran into one guy who worked with I've worked with Trump University. I've worked with this. I've worked with Kiyosaki, like he was a name dropper. Like he's out there, and probably some of your listeners have ran across this, and he branded a trust. So when you read it, you think that he is the only person that has created this trust, and that it's some super duper one of a kind, unique type of trust. And they charge almost 40 grand for it. Right. I mean, these products can get very expensive, and it's not, it's just like a run of the mill. They just slapped a name on it, put a trademark over it, and they add a couple of things to it that are like, some videos to show you how to deal with it, and you can talk to maybe a CPA. Right. And this is what you're going to pay $35,000 more than if you went somewhere else and just said, I want a structure like this. So
Right.
don't get snowed by that, the trademark. I mean, it's great marketing. I had to appreciate that from a marketing viewpoint. That was smart marketing, but it was, legal remedies like trusts, or you need to just shop around. You can get them. It's the same paperwork, the same filings.
Right. So I guess the main takeaway for this is if you're going to buy property, think about all the legal ramifications that could come your way if something was to go wrong, and talk to multiple different service providers. One obviously would be Leafy Legal Services, because
call us up, get a quote, get some quotes, and then, and then look it up, don't get snowed, don't get overwhelmed, because you can talk to so many people, you end up doing nothing. And that's the worst thing that you can do. Just like in real estate investing, you can talk to go on Bigger Pockets, and you can listen to all these podcasts, but then you never buy an extra rental property. Well, don't do that. I mean, at one point you're going to have to make an effort and jump in and write a contract and get one, right?
Right.
You're going to have to find that property manager, and do that, so you just have to launch when you do it. It's just, think about your business like a business.
Mm-hmm.
The moment you do that and you put the right structure in place, then you don't have to worry about that again. You don't have to worry about 3 years later, the California FTB coming back and saying, oh, by the way, we noticed this, and this. And then you're like, what do I have to pay? I didn't know any better. Or, whatever. You don't want to get caught. And that's really what kills people, the little things, or getting a lawsuit from someone because they, I read this one thing on Bigger Pockets. It was not funny for the people, but what they did is they were house hacking a flip. So a couple moved into the flip that they were renovating themselves, and they used their name, and they told everybody they own the house. Don't do that. Don't do that. They tried to make friends with the neighbor, and the wife worked, and they were a younger couple, but the husband was disabled, but like not, he was just at home, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy gets his survey, goes out, and he starts marking out his line because he wants to put a fence, because a fence will add ROI to the house. They'll be able to flip it more. And the neighbor comes out and starts screaming at them. It became a deal. The next day he painted all the trees blue on that side to claim them. Bright blue trees, because that's going to make a house sell. Wink. And so now the guy got embroiled in a whole deal, and he had to go back and try to do I get a structure now? And I don't know if they've tried to file something against me. Now they're saying they're going to go to the homeowners association. All this stuff blew up. And if he would have just not, if he would have just had like an anonymous structure, they don't really know if they're a renter, worked with the other guy, had the surveyor map it out, so many little things that you can do like that would have made that situation not nearly be as bad.
Yeah. So it really all comes down to, just like with everything, it comes down to like doing your research, educating yourself, talking to many people, asking a bunch of questions, and then figuring out what the right thing is. But in the end, everybody still has to take action and like make some stuff
That's
happen.
right.
So
yeah, you have to still take the action and decide what is best for you.
Yeah.
And the good thing about structuring is you don't have to get the biggest structure right off the bat. You can work up to it. We do that with people all the time. We just set them up with their first anonymous LLC. And then we say, this is how it would look when you're hitting your stride. This is what you're going to want to get. And this is what it's going to cost you to get there. Right now, you can start out with this. So be sure that you can have a plan for that if you're brand new,
Mm-hmm. No,
that's
definitely
fine too. At least start getting it in place, and then you can budget for that. You could put that overage into your projects and say, okay, we need to add a little bit more for profit so it can go to the fund so we can set this up for ourselves, just like you do for insurance, just like you do for your rehab, just like you do for everything else.
Well, yeah, it's just like everything you do. I mean, as you build and get more into it, you're going to learn more and add more things. And I mean, everything gets easier over time. So that definitely makes a lot of sense. So you have a podcast too, right? The Leafy podcast. That kind of, you talk kind of about this, but give everybody kind of an idea of what the podcast is about.
Well, Leafy Podcast, we talk about this, but we have on a lot of guests too. So we have guests that are from the entrepreneurial space. We talk about mindset. We have note buyers, multifamily, hard money lenders, how to do a better rehab. I mean, you name it. We've got some of the best guests on the planet. We've had the founder of Salesforce.com. We just did a masterclass on Entrepreneurs on Fire about estate planning. We have a big podcast, Leafy Podcast, but you just go to leafylegalservices.com, click on Leafy Podcast, and then all of our links, iTunes, Stitcher, we're everywhere.
Right on. Well, cool. Jennifer, I appreciate this. This is a lot of information. I hope everybody don't get overwhelmed, people. It does seem like a lot, but it's just like anything, right? Before you ever bought your first rental property, it felt overwhelming at that point. You're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to like do the numbers. I don't know how to get a property manager. Once you do it one time or two times, it's super easy. It's just like, you just understand it all. Same with this, if it feels overwhelming, talk to somebody that's done it a bunch of times, you get in there. Once you do it, you're going to, I'm sure, learn more and more every time. So it's just going to be, it's not as overwhelming as it seems at first.
No, and don't go it alone. That's what we're here for. That's what you have people for. Go, like I talk to people all the time and they don't become a client right away, but they take that and then later on they think about it and then they come back for like an LLC or they come back for a contract.
Mm-hmm.
I want to contract with my first property manager. And we'll do their contract and an LLC for them, just like, you don't have to go it alone completely. There are people out there that are wanting to help you.
For sure.
It's all okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thanks to Jennifer. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys reach out to her legal services company, Leafy Legal. Ask them any questions you have. I'm sure you guys have videos and all that stuff online that kind of like walks you through or kind of gives you.
We got a blog. We're big on Bigger Pockets, or you just, I just say book a consult with me. It's free.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get me one-on-one and ask me all the questions you want.
Yeah, do it. All
right. I'm good with that. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Jennifer, thanks again. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. And you have a great afternoon.
Okay. You too.
Thanks.